Today I'm quite literally elevating my D&D terrain. You've seen it on the channel before. DungeonBlocks is a system of 3D printable terrain for tabletop gaming that simply allows you to drop these blocks together into a grid to create awesome battle maps. No clips, magnets, or glue. But this system has always had one major flaw in my eyes: the lack of elevated wilderness terrain. Now, enter the newest addition to the DungeonBlocks library, DungeonBlocks XL, and its first release, the Majestic Highlands. So let's take a look at this new addition to the system together. I'll give you my thoughts and any concerns I might have, then we'll get a few of these printed up and probably also get some paint on them to know what they would actually look like once they hit the game table. Do note that the team behind DungeonBlocks did grant me access to these files, with the understanding that I might showcase them on the channel, so do feel free to treat this video as a bit of an ad. With that said, I have purchased previous sets of DungeonBlocks myself and wouldn't be recommending this to you if I didn't truly love the system. DungeonBlocks XL Majestic Highlands not only adds new elevated features to an already expansive collection of themes, but also expands on the core system behind these tiles. Previous sets of DungeonBlocks used 3x3 grids that sat next to each other, held within a frame. These new tiles, however, are in and of themselves a 3x3 size compared to the old ones, and so had to introduce a new grid system. Something that I really appreciate with this upgrade to the system is that the grids no longer just sit next to each other, but actually have a dovetail locking mechanism, where the tiles slot and hold themselves together. Though I will say I would have appreciated if that at least included a version that worked with the old grid pieces, as this doesn't really work for someone who already has a ton of the old system printed up. But that's not to say that this new release of DungeonBlocks is incompatible with old sets. Actually, quite the contrary. These new XL grids allow for the usual DungeonBlocks tiles with the simple addition of a divider, which fits nice and neatly into these new base grids, letting you add more specific decorations from previous DungeonBlock releases, or incorporate different aesthetics with the Highlands. So, while my original collection of grids is now outdated, so to speak, it will almost definitely be worth me printing up a new collection with these new base plates and dividers, allowing me to get the most out of my DungeonBlocks moving forward. But enough about compatibility, let's take a look at what's included in this release and how they actually print up. Before we continue, if you want to see more of my FDM printing videos surrounding the tabletop hobby, do consider subscribing down below to get notified whenever I upload. And if you do want to help support the channel further, consider checking out my Patreon. For a couple of bucks, you'll get access to the Painted for Combat Discord server and all of my printer profiles. And at the higher tiers, you'll get access to some awesome FDM-ready STLs. The welcome bundle comes with the painting handles I use in almost every miniatures video, along with some other goodies, but you'll also get access to this month's release of FDM-friendly bases. The Rocky Roads. Inspired by many a vehicle miniature, these bases are perfect for any cracked desert road, war-torn highway, or any high-octane miniatures. All designed to print support-free on FDM printers, and sculpted with flat top surfaces to minimize the amount of visible layer lines on the final print. So, whether you want to jump into the Discord and talk all things 3D printing, or just get your hands on some awesome FDM-ready STLs, consider heading over to the Patreon. Links below. With the XL blocks being extra large, it has allowed the team to create some more intentional sculpts. Single blocks are great for dungeons or building layouts, but to get great looking elevated outdoor terrain, having these 3x3 sizes as a single chunk allows for much more artfully sculpted designs. From the staggered cliff faces to grandiose bridges, caves, and waterfalls, these sculpts will make for some incredible wilderness terrain. And with some awesome details like dragon remains, huge wild mushrooms, and full campsites, there's a ton of personality in this set. Though I do have some minor issues with a few of these pieces. I understand not wanting to limit the sculptors in any way, but in my opinion, it still would have been better if all of these blocks were sculpted with a 3x3 grid in mind. Some of the stepped hillsides or decorative blocks make it a tad difficult to properly position a mini if you're using a gridded system. And while this might not matter for some games that don't use grids, I bring this up because all of the previous sets prided themselves on being such a great solution to many of the issues with grid-based terrain. So to me that just felt like a slight oversight, accidentally steering away from that design direction. Yes, it's still easy enough to imagine, or simply explain, 3 minis to the side of a tile and one in the middle, but actually positioning the minis there is often another thing. That said, this is definitely not a deal breaker for me. Some clever placement of your models or a little bit of sticky tack will be a very simple solution to a very minor issue. As you've seen here, I printed up a very small set of these new blocks, and between the rocky cliffs and decorative ground pieces, there is plenty of versatility, even with such a small set of blocks. The risers look like sheer cliff faces, and can easily be a part of the terrain themselves, or they can be hidden away, simply to be functional pieces, allowing you to elevate the flat blocks as a higher ground level. I chose to print these blocks using variable layer heights, allowing me to capture nice detail in the grass and intricate features, but to bump up the layer height of the bases, bricks, and cliffs to speed up printing. And while I might have had some cooling issues with the new PLA I've been testing out, these XL blocks printed up great. And just taking a look at a few of these blocks, they would also make for pretty awesome diorama set pieces. I can already imagine that a couple of minis on here, painted up real nice, would be an awesome display piece. But now that we've discussed the additions, the refinement to the system, and covered some of my concerns and points of excitement, why don't we go ahead and get these XL dungeon blocks all painted up and see what they might look like once they actually hit the game table. As of releasing this video, there is still just over 2 weeks left on the My Mini Factory campaign for this new release. So if you do want to pick up the Majestic Highlands at the lowest price these files will ever be, I'll leave some links down below so you can check that out. These new blocks are such a welcome addition to an already awesome terrain system. I can only hope we see more XL blocks included with future releases, or releasing alongside the usual system. I would love to see a caves version of this with rocky features and magma rivers, or a biomes set with some desert sand dunes and snowy tundras. This new XL approach to dungeon blocks has opened a ton of awesome doors for this system, and personally, I can't wait to see what's next. If you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing down below to stay up to date with all things FDM printing for the tabletop hobby. Leave a like and drop a comment down below. Let me know what you think would be an awesome next theme for this system. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, have a good one.